Hello and welcome to another episode of Home Care Hot Seat. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Trudi Scrivener, Managing Director of Ashridge Home Care and a founding member of the Living Care Hub. So welcome Trudi, thanks so much again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. So I just wanted to start by asking you a bit about your background. So you founded the company Ashridge Home Care in 2017. Where were you before this company?
Well, I've worked in social care for my whole career, which spans a good 30 years now. But immediately prior to setting up Ashridge, I was running a very similar domiciliary care business in Buckinghamshire.
Right. Okay. What led you to the move to Ashridge?
I think I had been working in other people's businesses for a long time, and there's always limitations. And I felt that I wanted to be able to do things the way that I wanted. And the reason that I set up Ashridge is because I wanted to be able to offer a service that I would want myself, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I've done.
Okay, and are you providing services in the whole of Buckinghamshire, or is it surrounding areas?
Yeah, and the surrounding areas. So,
Okay.
I mean, predominantly we cover the home counties, but we do go a bit further afield. But we tend to stay fairly local to Buckinghamshire.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you've obviously become a well-known advocate for living care as an alternative option to residential care in the short period of time that you've been founded the company. What work have you done so far to raise awareness, and what impact has this had?
Well, I was one of the founding members of the Living Care Hub, who've been really active in raising awareness of living care as an alternative residential care. I think it's been apparent during the first lockdown when our inquiries from people who were looking for an alternative to a care home increased considerably. So I definitely think that awareness raising has worked. I think people do want to have choice now, and I think they are looking for alternatives, and I think that there should be options. I think there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of collaboration that's needed with the NHS to educate leaders. It's still the default position for many GPs and other NHS professionals when people start to need more care is it's time for a nursing care home. And actually what we're saying is there is an alternative, and that's living care.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of education is being put out there to try and change that view?
Well, I think that there are more case studies, and I certainly think that the Hub are doing a lot of work to raise awareness with some happiness studies, so looking at the well-being of people who have living care versus the well-being and happiness of people that are in residential care homes, and yeah, the results are very interesting.
And you mentioned the pandemic, highlighting it as an option. Do you think that because of the devastating impact on care homes, people are realising now that living care is a safer option?
Yes, I think they are. I think the care homes, our colleagues in the care home sector, have really struggled actually, and through no fault of their own. It's been a very, very difficult environment to work in, to look after groups of people in an institutional setting, in a building where there's lots of staff coming and going. It's been really, really challenging. And I think, families look at living care, you've got one carer living in with one client. It's very protected, and in a way, families can carry on as normal. Families, apart from we're in lockdown again, but families have been visiting their relatives, and we see all these devastating images, really, don't we, about families are not able to visit their loved ones in care homes, and it must be a really difficult situation for all of those people involved.
So have you been having many inquiries then from families of people in care homes to transfer them back to their own homes?
Yes, we have. At the beginning of the pandemic, in the first lockdown, we had people that were wanting to leave care homes. And we did have one chap that was able to ring us directly himself to check himself out in a way. But, you know, he was fortunate enough, he still had his house to come out to. But yeah, I think, excuse me, I think we're having an increase in inquiries of people looking for something different. So where they would ordinarily, we get lots of callers saying, well, we were going to put mum in a care home, but we don't really want to do that now. And here's a brilliant alternative, a safe alternative as well.
Yeah, you said previously that living care providers are prepared to support care homes that have been overwhelmed by coronavirus cases by transferring residents back to your care. So how successful has this been?
I think it's been a very difficult area, but it has been successful. And I think, you know, speaking on behalf of the hub members, I'm sure they would say the same, that we've supported a lot of people in that situation. And it has, you know, it's very difficult, but we've worked with care home managers. I personally have some really positive relationships with care home managers, and you know, I understand the struggle they're in, but what we are offering is an alternative to take the burden off them through this difficult time until hopefully next year we move into a new phase, and that may well be an option that people want to choose. But for me, it's about people having choice, really.
And what did those care home managers make of the move to move them out and into your care?
I mean, our experience was very positive, and I think people understand or understood really the wishes of relatives. And I don't think anybody would not be able to understand that position. You know, if you had your parent in a care home, you're not able to visit them, and there's people, you know, getting coronavirus around them, it's a very worrying time. And I don't think any care home manager would want to prevent somebody from moving out. And it also helped them, you know, if they're reducing numbers, it helped them to manage the situation that they had at the time.
Yeah, okay. Going forward though, does it mean that, you know, if they're being moved back home into your care, their occupation levels next year and going forward after the pandemic are going to be lower?
Well, I mean, I don't think so, because I think there is a place for everybody. Some people, yesterday I spoke to a care manager who said that if it wasn't for the pandemic, she would put her client into a care home, because her view was that she really enjoyed the social aspect. She liked being around other people. So, you know, maybe she'll have living care for a year, but perhaps in a year's time, they might decide to go down that route. So I don't, you know, I think all I'm advocating is that living care is an alternative option for people that want to stay in their own home.
Okay, so you do believe that there is a place for care homes as well?
Yes, there is absolutely, yeah. Staying at home is not for everybody, and for some people it's just not possible either.
Okay, thank you. So what do you make of the big players like Home Instead, Blue Care, Radfield Care, expanding their living care services, and also the new startups coming into this area because they're seeing a massive demand for living care? Yeah. Is there a place for all of these players?
Well, I think the Living Care Hub is living proof that a group of like-minded competitors can work together to achieve great things. And there is a need, you know, there is a demand. So I have no issue with people coming on board. I think the problem is, especially with the smaller startup companies that see it as an opportunity, the problem is sometimes they don't really understand the complexity of living care. And it is, you know, it's a very complex process. It's a very difficult job. You know, it's a really challenging job for people, and you've got to get the training and support right. And I think, you know, for people coming into the living care business new, I think as long as they do things properly and they're really focused on the quality, then I think there's room for everybody.
Recruitment is obviously a major challenge for the adult social care sector already. Do you think there'll be enough recruits to fill all these new roles that are coming into living care, especially particularly when the new immigration rules come into place?
Yeah, I don't think there's any care provider that would tell you that's not going to be difficult, that recruitment is the most challenging area of our industry. We taking various approaches. We continue to advocate that we need overseas workers to carry out these professional carer roles, and without those people our whole industry is at risk. But we also need to look at different ways of recruiting, and actually this pandemic has shown us that there's a whole group of people out there who, and for us it's been predominantly women who've had big career jobs that have lost their jobs because of the pandemic and because of the economic climate that we're in, and have decided to do something different. So we have targeted that group of people, and we've got some brilliantly skilled carers that have come from, you know, very career driven jobs. So they're very skilled and they've moved. They want to do something different because here's an opportunity to do something different. They want to give something back, and it's really rewarding. You know, it might not be paying the money that they earned before, but actually, you know, the flip side is they're really feeling the reward of supporting people on a one-to-one basis.
And are you able? Do you think you'll be able to retain those staff as well once, you know, they go back, possibly?
I think, you know, there will be some fall off without a doubt, but actually, you know, what we're finding is those people are really enjoying the role and never imagined that they would be. You know, they never imagined that they'd be doing that. But I think the you know, the Clap for Heroes and that whole campaign really helped our cause, because it got people thinking about what other people were doing for other people. And I think it raised, there was sort of a natural awareness raised about caring work.
Yeah, I was watching the virtual care festival today, and a lot of the providers were saying, you know, it's the understanding of social care is really strong now, whereas before, in the first couple of months of the pandemic, social care was kind of left to its own devices. Slowly the recognition is built, so hopefully that'll keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a pride, isn't there, now, to being, you know, people look at carers and frontline workers with pride and admiration, whereas before people didn't even know they were there, probably.
Okay. Another challenge facing the home care sector is the fact that many homes aren't built to meet the needs of, you know, current and future generations of older and disabled people. What can the government do you think, to tackle the growing shortage of accessible homes? Because without accessible homes, people can't stay at home.
Yeah. Well, I think that they definitely need to address the issue, because you're absolutely right. You know, the current housing stock is not suitable. My husband's actually Danish, and in Denmark, the housing situation is so different. You know, it's very, home is very important to the Scandinavians, and actually that's what we based our business model on. And
Right.
And they build homes that are of good quality and are considerate to people's living needs and future needs. And it means that people can stay long term. And I think that hasn't really happened here. But I know that there is interest from different groups and organisations about looking at different housing models to make sure people can stay at home. We've also had a lot of experience of families building annexes for their relative to live in with a living carer, which is brilliant. But obviously that's not an option for many people, but it does work really well.
Yeah. Do you help people adapt their own homes to accommodate your carers?
Yes, yeah, we have. And actually in lockdown, we had an example of a couple that lived in a very small bungalow. Her husband had dementia and she'd broken her arm and she couldn't look after him. So, but they didn't really have space for a living carer. So we sort of went in and had a look and rearranged, you know, guided them to rearrange the home so they could accommodate somebody to stay 2 months until she'd recuperated, and then moved on. But yes, certainly there's always lots of shifting and moving around so that people can accommodate and so that they can stay there longer.
Yeah. And it's that kind of innovation that you were talking about before that led you to win the Home Care Heroes Award as well. Yeah. That must have been a great feeling to win that.
It's lovely. It's so nice, and it's such a boost for the team. It really is. Yeah, everybody was so proud. I mean, I'm super proud, but everybody felt so good about what they'd been doing. And I think what we've been doing for the last however many months it is, I always lose count, is just really pulling on people's skills and drawing people in to offer support to each other. So we had a friend of mine who's a TV home economist. We had her doing Zoom cooking lessons for carers that might be overseas and might not know how to make the best shepherd's pie. And if you remember, at the first lockdown, there were some ingredients we just couldn't get hold of, flour and other thick pasta and other things. So she would give them tips on alternatives so that they could make nice meals. And then we had, somebody making foot care videos because people couldn't get out to appointments and podiatrists couldn't come in. So some basic tips for carers, and very much focused on staff motivation, because people had been locked down with their clients for 5 months without going home or having a break. So it's very much about focusing on looking after the carers and just keeping in touch with them, calling them every day, weekly Zoom meetings. I even got Tony Hadley to do a motivational message, and he made a little video. Some people won't know who Tony is, but if you're 40 plus, you probably do. Yeah, so that was really nice. But just lots of little things like that, competition, and just trying to be motivated.
How did they feel? How did your staff feel when they finally that lockdown ended? Must have been a relief.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, the problem was, even though lockdown had ended, there was no change for them because our overseas carers couldn't travel home. But they just decided they were going to stay put with their client, and we gave them sort of extra break time and extra support so that they didn't sort of burn out. But yeah, I mean, I think when people finally managed to get home, it was a great relief.
Yeah, and what's happening now? Now we're in the second lockdown. Are they?
Well, it's still, again, it's a challenge, and we've adopted some of the things that we did through since March anyway that have just continued. So we've sort of carried on with that support. It feels like it's part of our DNA now. But yeah, it is difficult for carers. I think it's the travelling, really. One of the things that we did throughout lockdown was we employed our own drivers, so that none of our carers had to get public transport. This has been helpful in getting people that are UK based backwards and forwards, but it's still really challenging for the overseas carers.
Okay. And how are you able to re-energize your staff? Because we talk about lockdown fatigue all the time, and they must be really feeling it now.
Yeah, I think they are. And it's just, constantly just checking in with them and finding different ways and different ideas of just trying to keep people engaged. And, we have seen people really struggle. And as long as we are maintaining contact with people every single day, and also with our clients' families, because they see the carers as well, so they can pick up on it if any struggles they might be having. So it's just, I know it's common sense, but it's really about relationships and just reaching out and being there for people.
Okay, thank you. So what are the 3 biggest lessons you think you've learned from the coronavirus pandemic as a living care provider?
That's a good question. I think one is make sure every single carer has a working electronic device, because technology has been absolutely key, and I think that will just continue. I think that we have had to really understand how to interpret guidance and make it work for our sector, and that has been challenging. And I think really it's about making sure that we keep in touch with people, that we keep communicating to families and to staff, because actually, people have been very frightened, staff and families and clients, and it's about making sure that we relay to them that, you know, we've got this, we'll do our best, and regular communication so that they have the confidence that we know what we're doing.
And what are your hopes for the living care sector over the next year and going forward after that?
Well, I hope that people will realise that being a living carer is a good career choice. So I hope we can raise awareness around that. And I also hope that live-in care is on the table as an option. So the default message to people is not, okay, it's time for your mum to go into a care home now, which it tends to be. So I just hope that it's out there on the table as a real option for people to choose if they want to be able to stay at home.